Good morning or afternoon, everybody. Verl Workman here with Workman Success Systems. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm excited to share with you why teams work. And more important than that, we have an amazing guest with us today that is going to really get into the ins and outs of building a successful team. I'm Verl Workman with Workman Success Systems, and we have been working with and building seven-figure teams for several years now. And our goal is to identify people who believe that something more is possible, put them into a program and systems that actually work, and then help them take their business from, it doesn't matter if you're making $100,000 a year or up, to where you're actually making over $1 million a year in real estate, and do that while creating a life that you really want. And so our real goal is creating life balance. So instead of just helping you make more money, we want you to make more money, and we want you to have more time to spend with your families or doing the important things that you believe you should be focused on in your life. And so as I introduce our guest today, and we're going to get into and talk about his journey from where he was to where he is today and how he got there and why the team works in his environment, I'm sure you're going to have some questions for Mike. So if you look at your toolbar, and just go into the toolbar and just say hi everybody, so I know you know how to go in and use the chat or the questions box, and also use that box for asking questions. When the time comes when we have breaks, I'll be able to go in and I'll be able to answer those questions, say hello to you, look at your chats, and make sure that we're able to make sure we're able to interact and get that. Any question you have regarding building a team or what it takes to get to a seven-figure team, we want to make sure that we give you those solutions. So welcome everybody, and let me go ahead and introduce our guest today. So everybody look up Super Mike. This is Mike Koch. Mike is the broker owner of Terra Firma Real Estate, runs his brokerage as a team. He's a veteran, which I love. My dad was a Marine, and when I first met Mike, I could tell that he had some military background because he's got that great haircut that just never left him after he left the military. Mike, I think still having that is pretty awesome. After 6 years in the Marine Corps, he started investing in real estate, and then he quickly discovered that was really where his passion was. And he started his real estate career in 2001, then doing real estate sales and consulting for a national land development company whose niche was really focusing on waterfront property. Mike's business just kind of grew. In about 2005, he was promoted, and he oversaw a whole division of acquisition and development. So he's got an enormous amount of real estate expertise, which I think is really valuable and helps him. He was an integral part of the company, making the Inc. 500 list 4 years in a row. In 2010, he decided to go on his own and open his own brokerage. And boy, Mike, are you regretting that, or are you glad you actually did that, opened your own brokerage? Is that a big thing?
I'm glad I did it now, but boy, was it a struggle back then, and I had a lot of people question me, do you really want to get into real estate when we're in the middle of a crash? And so I've actually had some people that since that time have said, we're really proud of you for succeeding in such a difficult time, but absolutely thrilled that we're now in the business.
Well, I love that, and there's several people that have thanked you for your service in the Marine Corps on the chat line, and I echo their sentiments, and I appreciate what you've done for our country and continue to do for the people you serve in your marketplace. Mike, tell us a little bit about your so before I move on, and Mike, I need you to really speak up. It's a little bit hard to hear you. Before we move on, I want everybody to know that if you stay to the end of today's webinar, I'm going to give you a link. And in that link, we're going to give you some very specific free downloads that you'll be able to utilize in your own business and in your team. And so make sure you stay with us till the very end of the webinar. So Mike, take us through a little bit about where you were in 2015 before you started with Workman, what your business looks like today. And I have a couple slides that will kind of walk you through it. And so let's just kind of talk about where you were, where you've been, and what that journey looks like. And then we'll talk about the things that you did to get there.
Yeah, so prior to Workman, 2015 was the year prior to Workman. I started with Workman Success in 2016. And before I go any further, Verl, is it okay to hear me now? Can you hear me loud enough?
Yeah, I hear you fine. You bet.
Okay, great. So at that time, we had one full-time buyer's agent. We had a part-time buyer's agent who was working in another field as well as a full-time job, and then an admin, and then my wife who did all of our administration stuff for payroll, accounts receivable, accounts payable, et cetera, and then myself. And I wore all the hats at that time, buyer's agent, listing agent, marketer. I was very involved in handling all the transactions for myself and the other 1.5 buyer agents at the time. So we were all over the place. And to be honest, 2015 wasn't all that much different than 2014 and 2013. And if I look at my first year in the business in 2010, from a real estate brokerage perspective, we were right around 40 some units then too. So we really didn't have much growth over a 5-year period. And quite frankly, the hours that I was putting in at the time was just too much.
So where did it go from there? What changed?
Well, what changed is we went to our state's association convention and in 2015 in December. And my wife and I, we split up. And I was in one seminar, she was in a seminar that was led by Verl Workman. And she came out of there and she said, you know what, Mike, you got to meet Verl. He's exactly what we're looking for to take us to the next level. And I didn't have a chance to meet Verl because he gathers a crowd at these conventions. And I didn't want to fight for his attention. So I said, you know what, let's set up a consultation with Verl and do a one-on-one. So we did that in January of 2016. I was blown away by all the tools that you guys have. I felt very confident that you guys would bring the knowledge that we needed to our team to help us grow. So then we ended up hiring Workman Success in 2016 to coach our team up. And we finished the year 2016 with 66 units. So we saw a nice, what is that, probably a 30% growth on the units. We saw about a 30% growth on our sales volume, and our GCI increased. We had never done $500,000, and we just about touched that point in 2016. So we saw some great growth. But it was in a transitional year when we were going from having very weak systems to implementing a lot of systems. So I actually thought that we might take a step back that first 8 months of coaching, but we actually saw some growth while putting the systems in place that we needed to scale down the road.
So what I think is interesting is that's the dead zone, I tell people. So when you're between 50 and 100 units, that is the hardest place to be because you're trying to get all your systems in place. You know that there's skill that's about to happen. So operationally, you're really focused on the scaling your business. And it usually takes a year or two to get there. So once we get to 100 units, I tell clients that the very next year you should double because you have all your systems in place. So what happened to you the next year?
So the next year, we went from in 2016 to 2017, we did see some really nice growth. Had our best year ever, and at 95 units, almost 20 million in sales, and we eclipsed that $500,000 GCI by climbing up to 616. And we're really excited about this coming year because now we have all these amazing systems in place. We're now ramping up our hiring, and now we're going to have the staff to take us to the next level along with the systems to support that. So we're projected to do 200 units in volume this year with 41 million in sales, and actually eclipsed the $1 million mark, probably about 1.3 million GCI on those 200 units.
Well, congratulations. And it's not, it's not an easy journey. It's not, you don't just sign up for coaching and it actually happens. Somebody actually has to do the work. Has it been a lot of work? I mean, tell me about your workload. Are you spending more time at work or less?
It has been a lot of work, and I'd say right now, my time at work is probably comparable to what it was prior to, but it's in a different fashion because we're in a ramp-up spot. We're actually onboarding 4 employees in 4 weeks right now. So we're adding 3 buyer's agents and an admin support person. Now, when that admin support person comes in, they're really going to be an executive assistant who's really going to be supporting myself and my wife. So that'll allow us to gain a lot of time back and focus on some of the higher level priorities within our business. By bringing on the buyer's agents, it's also going to allow some of my other agents that are kind of doing listings and buyer work just because of the need. They'll be able to shift out of the buyer work and focus 100% on the listing side, which will just increase our listing inventory and bring a lot of great things with that. So I'm really looking forward to what it's going to mean once we have the additional team members on board.
I love that. So, and I also love your wife because she was the one that sat in the class and said hello. What prompted her to say, this is what we need? I mean, what was the underlying motivator there that said, you know what, we got to change?
There was a couple big things, Verl. One was that the full-time guy I had on my team, he'd been with me for a couple years, and he was a friend first and became a team member second. And, he was putting in a lot of time, a lot of hours, and just wasn't seeing the production that he wanted to see. I did as much as I could at the time to help him, going on showings, helping him overcome objections, teaching him how to become a great buyer's agent. but I knew that we needed more for him and also our full-time or our part-time guy. I wanted the part-time guy to be able to leave the full-time job, but I didn't feel that I had the systems and tools in place, nor the time personally to train them. So we felt that what Workman Success could provide would be the training to help increase the production of the team members that were there, and as we added, help those people reach, whatever goals they may have for themselves. The other thing was the knowledge and the expertise to grow. We made a decision at that point that we no longer wanted to be a 4-person team and be comfortable with, let's call it $300,000 to $400,000 at GCI. We wanted to grow the team so that we could have other things afforded to us. And we needed that help, and we needed the expertise because, as you mentioned, we were primarily a lake specialty company leading up until that time, and we wanted to break into our residential market, which is in the Madison area. And I needed help breaking into a market that is still very competitive, and I felt that you guys could help take us there. And then last is, I always knew that if something happened to me, I had no business. If I got injured, we had no income. And I didn't have a business that I could sell. I didn't have anybody that could step in and run that business. So we wanted to grow the business so that we'd have something of value that we could sell. And in doing that, our oldest son has actually joined the company. And the succession plan isn't probably to sell, it's probably to turn it over to him to run it and me still be involved in some capacity. So it's amazing.
Oh, I'd still make him buy it, Mike. It's okay to make him buy it.
I'll be consulting you to help with that transition, bro.
I'll help you with the transition planning. So tell us a little bit about your market. One of the things I hear from people before they ever get engaged with us is that, our market's different. Did you have any of those same thoughts?
No, I didn't think our market was different. I didn't want to put that limiting belief out there that we couldn't succeed. And I think our market is a lot like a lot of the other metro areas. It might be difficult, but there's just some things that you need to adjust to compete. Everybody all over the country talks about low inventory, and I buy into the dialogue that you have is we don't have an inventory problem, we have a market share problem. And if I were to go into my MLS right now and look at the volume of homes that sold last week, it's very high. If I look at the percentage of that market share I have, it's too low. So if I can go out there and grab more of that market share, I can solve the inventory problem for my team.
I like to say, it's not that we have an inventory problem, it's just that somebody else has it. And you got to go get that inventory and take it back. So let's talk just a little bit about some of the marketing things that you do and some of the things that have made a big impact on your business.
Yeah, so we've taken a little bit of I'll say a shotgun approach, but just from a marketing perspective, what we did is we really dialed into the areas that we wanted to penetrate where we already had some name recognition. And at the time, it was more my name recognition than the company name recognition. So we changed our signage, we changed our branding to have me on more of it and more of our team. Our website now is MikeKochTeam.com because in the marketplace, having kids that are through high school and through college and we're really involved in sports, people knew who we were. So we changed that as we tried to penetrate it. We identified the markets that we wanted to get into based off the turnover ratio in those areas. We're looking at an 8 to 10% turnover ratio. So we have pockets or neighborhoods within the community that we're targeting. And we take a shotgun approach with the marketing now. We do our geo farming, which we'll see a postcard here coming up. Anytime we get a listing in that area, we do the just listed postcard that was on the previous screen. If we get a sale in that marketplace, we do a just sold postcard to that marketplace. And it's not any one of these tools or systems or marketing campaigns that's the golden egg for us. It's the cumulative effort of touching these people in many different ways. So when we get a listing, we send out that just listed postcard. When we have an open house, here's an example of an open house postcard that we send out to the neighborhood. It might be 100, it might be 200 or 300 people. It depends upon the farm that we're working in. Once we have that open house, we do the Workman Success open house on steroids, where we're really creating a buzz for this property, getting a lot of signage out, marketing aggressively to try to get 50 different families into the home so that we not only sell that home, but we generate more business, both sales side and the listing side for our team. We're out there door knocking. We're dropping off football magnets with schedules on them. We're holding a community event. We're going to do a shredder day where people can bring all their stuff to our office and we'll have refreshments and hot dogs. So we're trying to get involved in the community, running some newspaper ads. Here's a quarterly report that we send out. and that's actually an 8.5 by 11 size, so it stands out in their mailbox. It's on heavy stock, and what we're doing is we're not just trying to get their listings, we're educating them. So we want to come from a contribution standpoint and tell them what's going on in their marketplace. And then we're prospecting around, we're calling expireds, we're doing circle prospecting. So we're hitting these farms, we're hitting these neighborhoods in multiple campaigns from different ways to really take a foothold. And we're really starting to get some good traction now. And I know that we got traction, things are going to become a lot more magical.
So you talk about things like everybody knows what they are. So what's circle prospecting? How do you get the numbers? Who are you calling? What does that look like? What kind of results are you getting?
So the circle prospecting is, we use a program called RedX, and RedX provides us expired leads, FSBO leads, and they call it geo leads. And basically we identify a neighborhood. Let's say we're going to have an open house and we want to call 100 people around that neighborhood. We can go right into RedX and put that address in there and maybe grab the nearest 100 homes. RedX will then bring us the addresses, the names, and the contact information, the phone numbers for those homeowners. And then they have a dialer. And some of my team is good and they can use a 3-line dialer and they're constantly talking to people, while others are not quite there yet and they use a single-line dialer and they're on hold for a little bit longer. But circle prospecting is just calling around the neighborhood where you have something of value to share and a means to have a meaningful conversation, and hopefully you find somebody who's willing or able and ready to buy and sell.
So I'm going to move on and talk about structure for just a minute, if that's okay. And let's talk a little bit about the process that you've learned and what happens when you decide you want to run and you want to onboard a new buyer's agent, for example. Explain what this sheet is, what we're looking at, and kind of how you use that in your process and what's involved in it.
Yeah, so this is our sprint. This is basically, we've identified what the task is with the project, and that's hiring a buyer's agent. And then we go through and we identify all the tasks that are associated with them. We put a level of priority to that task. We keep track of where we're at within that task. And then on the right, we assign it to somebody. And every day, as I'm becoming more and more of a CEO of my company, I'm trying to make sure that my name is in as few of those spots on the right as possible. So when we're getting ready to hire, we just go back to this list, Verl. We are hiring now our 6th, 7th, and 8th buyer's agent. So when we hired our 6th and we're ready to hire a 7th, we just come right back to the sprint and we do the same thing again. And then we rinse and we repeat. So, we run our ads, we reach out to our vendors and talk to them about the job opportunity and get the word spread amongst our title companies, our lenders, home inspection companies that work with other agents. And then we compile a list of agents that are doing 12 or less transactions a year so that we can target existing agents and maybe we can help them with their business. We'll take that list and import it into a couple different systems. Scipio allows you to create a text strip campaign. Top Producer, we can create an email campaign. But we have our entire task list for that. Now our process is we run the ads. Once we have somebody who submits their resume and their cover letter, then Ann goes through all of those. She basically creates a yes pile and no pile, and then she'll reach out to them. She'll schedule them to do a DISC and motivators assessment, so we have that on file. She'll conduct the first phone interview, which is about a 20-minute phone interview just to get to know them. How do they sound on the phone? Is this somebody we want to go to the next level? If everything checks out there, she puts them into the yes pile, and then Ann will conduct the first interview. We've compiled our interview questions. She has questions she asks. I have questions I ask. If they pass the interview process with her, she'll literally come grab me and say, all right, you're up. And then I'll go interview them for 20, 30 minutes. If everything checks out there, we'll get their references. Ann will call and check all their references. The one thing that you guys taught me to do was not just call the 3 references that they give you, but start digging and go 3 deep on each of those. So you're actually making 9 calls, and the farther you get away from the reference that they gave you, the more honest the information probably is. So we try to go as deep as we can by just saying, thank you for the reference on Tom. Is there anybody else that you know that also knows Tom that we could reach out to? Check the references, then they come in for a second interview. That's Ann and I together, and then we summarize our interview from that point. we actually use a Google document so we can see each other live. If I'm in there with the interview, I'm actually putting my notes into the spreadsheet, and I can see she's already in there putting her notes in from her interview. So we can see that while we're going. On my second interview, Verl, I dive really deep into what we do, the systems we use, the tools that we use, and you might be getting into those, but we utilize Workbench, we utilize daily success habits, the lead tracker, our CRM, what my expectations are for that agent, literally what does a day in the life of buyer's agent look like in my office. I want to be as transparent as I can about their job and their role and the way we do things, maybe to scare them away, because if it's not for them, I want them to pull themselves out now rather than realize that a couple months in. So that second interview is a bit lengthy. And then I personally am coached by the director of coaching for Workman, Jim Knowlton. I have him do a final interview with anybody who makes it to that level.
Yeah, he's a no BS interviewer. He's actually in my office. He's in Salt Lake this week and doing a few interviews for us as we're expanding our team. We're making sure that they get to have the Jim treatment. And he's a tough guy to get past on an interview because he really understands the process. And really, one of the things that I've learned is that interviewing has to be a process. It's not a conversation. It's not a chit chat. It's you follow a script, you ask questions, you dig deep, you find out what they're really telling you. And oftentimes it's not in their words. And what you really find out about them during the interview process lets you know if they're going to be a good fit or they're not a good fit. What's your compensation strategy around buyer's agents?
In terms of how I share what our compensation plan is?
Yeah, how do you pay your buyer's agents?
So our buyer's agents earn between 40 and 50% of the total commission that comes into the company. And there might be some people on this call who think, gosh, there's other companies in our area offering 70 or 80%. How can I compete with that? And to be honest with you, Verl, if somebody were to call me, if I were to have another agent call me and say, I saw your ad, I understand you guys are recruiting, what's your split? I won't even talk about split until we're face to face. And when I'm in that first interview with somebody, I usually won't talk about that either until it gets brought up by them or until I can learn more about them. Because it's not about the split that's important, it's how much money they take home to their family. And I'll actually take a piece of paper out and talk to them about where their business is right now, what their split is, determine how much money they took home to their family, show them what they should take home to their family at the end of year one with us, and then talk about what their long-term goals are and how we can help them get there. Because if they want to make 100 grand, they can do that here. If they want to make 150 grand, they can do that here. Can they do that on their own? In most situations, no. So we really educate them on how it's not about the split, but it's about the money they can take home, because I need to keep more of that as a team leader so that I can provide the support and the tools and the leads and everything else to them so that they can do 3 or 4 transactions a month.
So now you're out there, you're interviewing, you bring somebody on, they pass the interview. Talk about the onboarding. What's next?
So this is the first page of our onboarding process, and we have it at 14 days. Some people it's taken longer, and some people have gotten through it quicker. It just depends on how quickly they absorb the information, and also whether they're a brand new agent to the industry or somebody who's been in the business for a while. So we have our onboarding. I think that's probably page 2. We just go right through from the first task on the first day all the way through to, these guys are ready to get out there in the field. We have all the activities assigned to somebody who can work with that person, whether it's my wife, who's our operations manager, or my admin support, myself, or Chris, who is our lead agent. And so Ann then takes this and she says, okay, what's happening in day 2? And she literally has a detailed list of day 2 of what time they're meeting with what person and what they're going to go over at that time. And now we know it doesn't all get done at that time, so we just got to carry that into the next day. But this makes sure that we train them in the proper order, whether it's filling out their paperwork for the Realtors Association, or it's training them on our CRM, or teaching them how to convert online leads. Everything is in here.
Yeah, I love that. There's a lot of information in here that, and what I love here most is that your name's not by very many of those tasks, Mike.
Yeah, Yeah, that's something that changed, Verl. I can relate with anybody who's on this call that might be a single agent looking to grow a team, or maybe has a team or two or three and they feel like they're pulled in a lot of directions. I can be too. And what we did is we have one of our agents, Chris, who is really good at what he does, and he's a great teacher and educator and coach. And so we have set him up to be a mentor. And when we get a new agent in, whether they're existing or brand new, they come into our team. Chris is their mentor, and he takes them on showings with him. He'll go on showings with them. He's very involved in the training process. It's no longer me showing them how to use the CRM or our MLS or our DocuSign. It's Chris doing that. And then we compensate him for that out of the agent split. And what it does is it really helps the agent get ramped up a lot quicker.
How soon from the time you hire a buyer's agent to where you want them with their first deal under contract?
We definitely want to get a deal under contract as fast as we can. And my stance on that is that even if I have to spoon feed them a deal, if it's a deal of my own, maybe it's out of my sphere of influence, I want to get them some business right away because they're 100% commission. So I realize that they could go for 90 days without a paycheck, but I would say typically our agents have their first deal under contract from the day they start with us, probably 45 days, maybe 60 days, because we don't even put them into the lead flow until they're ready to handle that client the way we need them to. They know our CRMs, they can set up searches, that we're ready for them to get out there. And that's typically 14 days of onboarding. I have one guy that I hired late last year that took about a month to get through this onboarding. But in his first 5 months, he had 6 deals. So it took him a while, right, but he was able to ramp up in his first 5 months of his career, having 0 sales experience and 0 real estate experience, do almost what the average agent does in a year.
That's awesome. When do you introduce them into the training center and some of that stuff?
I'd have to go back and look at that onboarding process. I think that we signed them up for BAM on day 5, but it'll be down there. It'll be a big section on that. I think it's day 5. But we just actually day 4. There it is, right there. So we introduced them to BAM on day 4 and full access to the training center. But I have a gentleman who is really bright and picks things up really fast that started last Friday, and he was in BAM on Monday. So we got him in on day number 2, and I think he's about halfway through BAM already.
So you want them in there learning, and they can go at their own pace. If they want to go faster, it's okay. If they're a little bit slower, you'll be patient with them.
Yeah, we tell them the expectation is that they complete it so they can go faster than that if they want, but we want it done in 8 weeks.
What kind of turnover have you had with your team?
Not very much. In the last 2 years, I've lost 2 people. One 60 days in, who she just decided she'd rather be a stay-at-home mom than work anywhere. And then the other one is somebody that was a more recent hire that just decided real estate and sales wasn't for him. He just didn't like the whole people process, and real estate just wasn't a feel for him. So 2 in the last 2 years.
So when you look back at your interview process, is there something you could have caught during that interview process with someone who doesn't like people? That's kind of interesting when I think about that, because I've had people like that too at teams that I've interviewed, and I've hired someone, and then I go back to the interview process, and I think there were a couple of telltales that we probably should have listened to.
Yeah, to be honest with you, Verl, this is a guy I've known for a long time. And so we knew him deep down, and I put him through a more intense hiring process than anybody else that I've hired, because I wanted to make sure that this was going to be a good fit. I literally had him shadow my lead agent for 4 or 5 hours one day, and I asked my lead agent, I want you to do hardcore prospecting. I want you to get a showing out there so you can take them out on a showing. I want you to do the dirty work of being a buyer's agent. And he wanted it. I mean, he had to really convince me why this was going to be a great career for him, and I really put him through. And I do an exit interview with everybody who leaves, and I did an exit interview with him, and he had nothing but great things to say about us, the training, his mentor, everything. He just said, I just found out that people expecting me to leave my desk and go out and show them property and do these things and waste my time. It just isn't the career for me. And we had conversation about how he's in more control of that than he might feel. And it could have been something that we could have coached him through, but I didn't want to have to talk him into it.
Yeah, if you have to talk, when people make the decision to leave, I'm usually pretty good about letting them go.
Yeah.
Let them share their talents with others. I think that's fascinating. So you're not you're pretty normal as far as leaders go, in that you're good at what you do. You have a lot of experience, and now all of a sudden you have all these other people. How hard has it been for you to learn how to delegate and to empower Chris or other people on your team to do things that you're good at? Was that been a challenge for you, or has that been easy?
It used to be really hard, but now it's really easy. Bringing on that first assistant, bringing on the first buyer's agent, my assistant won't be able to do the job as good as me. Odds are that assistant can probably do the job better than me. Nobody's going to want to work with the other buyer's agent, the listing agent. Everybody knows Mike Koch. They're going to want to work with him. And I'll be honest with you, it's just not the case. Our team does a great job at taking care of people. It's frequent that I'll hand a friend off to a member of my team and let them know that I'm doing that because I believe my buyer's agent will provide a higher level of service to them than I can as the broker and team leader. So delegating has not been too difficult anymore, but it was really hard early on. And I'll tell you, we're hiring this executive assistant, and I've already got a list of things I'm going to delegate to her, Verl. So it's, for me to get to where I want to be, I have to let go, and I have to let other people do it, and they'll probably do a better job than I can.
And so having a team that's working, and you clearly have a team that's working, when you go from 100 to 200 units in a year, that's a big step to double production and do it with confidence. And you're on track to do that. Talk to me a little bit about the culture of productivity. What's the culture like? What are the things you do on a daily basis? And share with them, and we're going to jump into some of the tools you use to make that work.
Yeah, so we want to basically create a culture of productivity and an environment of success. And what we don't want to have is a bunch of busy agents. We want to have a bunch of productive agents. So I huddle, daily huddles with my team, a weekly team meeting with the entire team. We cater and lunch. It's fun, and it's an opportunity for everybody to get together. Everybody has a perfect week that they use. I occasionally check in with their perfect week versus their daily success habits and how are those two tracking together, and do we need to adjust one. We have somebody that's changing some responsibilities within their job. So we talked about with the change in responsibilities, there's also going to have to be a change with the perfect week. Dedicated prospecting time, we know 8 to 10 in the morning, 4 to 6 in the evening is the time to do it. So why do it from 11 to 1? Maximize your time, be as efficient as you can with that time. They track everything that they're doing in Workbench, and I won't lie and say that every team member does it every day, but we talk about it every day. And there's a daily success habit tracker. They track in half-hour increments what they do on the left side. They keep track of their points for their money-making activities right in the middle, and then they have their prospecting time. There's 2 sessions there. We like to do it in the morning and then in the evening, and then they can total up what they have at the bottom along with their notes. That's the hard copy there, I think, that you're sharing. And Workman, since we started coaching with them, rolled out Workbench, and so now we have the electronic copy that they track their numbers in.
So take us through Workbench and how you look at Workbench, and as a leader, what kind of data you get out of it, what kind of information, and how's it helping you as a team. So just take them through this. I'll let you take them through what your view is and how you're using it, and just explain what it is.
Yeah, so there are some of my buyer's agents down there, my new guys. Actually, I think Adam's added in, but like Tara, if I were to click on Tara, I can go through and dive further into what's Tara's day look like. So over on the left-hand side, you can click on the success habits. And then on the right-hand side is her points, and it shows you how many points she's totaling in a day. Those are her money-making activities that are calculated from the middle of the screen. The goal is for them to get 61 points, and when it does, it goes green. And the first, sometimes, Verl, people will drink the Kool-Aid right away and they'll just jump on board. And other times they want to resist. And those who jump in right away, we've seen have the greatest success. But, you know, I've had people that I've coached and team members too, that they have a hard time tracking it or hitting 61 points. And what we taught them first was get in the habit of tracking it, even if it's 5 or 10 points, just get in the habit of tracking it. And then once they start tracking it, we'll work with them to get their numbers up. On the left-hand side, she's tracking her activities that she does during the day in half-hour increments. And there's even a spot in there for fake work. You know, if Tara just decided she wanted to take a break, she had to get off the phone, she was done prospecting, she wanted to check Facebook or ESPN or something like that, there's a spot in there for fake work. And hopefully we don't see that too much. But we go through this in our daily huddle. And, you know, hey, how's it going? And sometimes I'll just ask them, hey, how did it go yesterday? What did you accomplish? What's your goal for today? Did you hit 61 points? And most of the time, I don't even need to look in there, and they'll tell me how productive their day was. One of the activities that I just did yesterday for one of my new agents is we went through the income goal spreadsheet where he told me what his goal is for his first year. And then we talked to the team about what their conversion percentages are so that we could populate his income goal spreadsheet so we could find out what he needed to do on a weekly basis. Then we went in and we looked at Tara. Tara is one of our top buyers agents. And we said, okay, how many points year to date does Tara have? And how many offers has she written? And I think she's written 26 offers on roughly 4,000 points, whatever it was. And from there, we were able to determine that for every 160 points that Tara puts in, she's writing an offer. And we looked at that for Chris as well. And for every 100 points that Chris puts in, he's writing an offer. And he's written 33 offers so far this year. So now I go back to them and I say, hey guys, your goal is to do 60 points in a day. For every 2.5 days that Tara hits her goal, she's writing an offer. And for every day and a half that Chris hits his goal, he's writing an offer. So it allows us to troubleshoot different parts of our business to maybe where we can help our agents out, but also it allows us to help them understand what is the level of production that they need to do so that they can hit their annual financial goal.
So it's fascinating to me that you've broken it down to numbers to offers. So you get 100 points, you write an offer. So every time you get 100 points, you're going to write another offer. So if you want to write more offers, what are you going to have to do? And we get right down into the activities that generate those results. So many people are focused on their gross closed income. They don't really track the activities that generate the results they want. And this is going and making it real granular. I love that. How else are you using your Workbench?
We use it also to identify. I had a conversation with Chris and Tara, and they're producing at a very high level. I mean, I hardly see them in the office anymore because they're out there on showings. And obviously that's one of the 3 things they need to be doing, but they're also putting in a lot of time. And we talked to them about where their time is at right now, how many showings are going on right now. And one of the more recent things that we did is, and we looked at their workbench to look at what their activities are and where are a lot of their points coming from. And we identified something that would help them get their life back and produce at a higher level was to hire a showing assistant. So now we have a team showing assistant that anybody on the team can use, but it was a hire that was driven by where Tara and Chris are at in their businesses. And we believe that this will help them produce a lot more. And again, if we're doing a 70–80% split, we might not be able to provide this kind of support. But this is something now that they're going to have the leverage to get their life back and produce at a higher level. So the thought of producing or taking home more money to your family and working less hours, that's one way that we're able to accomplish that.
Yeah, I think that's great. So down here at the bottom of your Workbench, there's a few resources that are quick fixes, right? If you wanted to get into showing assistant, one of the things I like to show is the resource library. When you go into the resource library from Workbench, you can really find anything. So if you wanted to search for showing assistant, there's everything you need on that position, including the position agreement, the showing instructions, the showing log, how they do it, how you track everything, and that was all linked right from your Workbench. Do you use that?
Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, I just did that for the showing assistant. We went in there and grabbed the Workman document and put our logo on it and just put our stuff in there. So that was really cool because when we first started hiring buyer's agents, we had to write the job description. We didn't have an onboarding process. We didn't have a sprint. So we had to create all this stuff. But Workman has provided all of that to us, from the job ads that we need to run the onboarding process. It wasn't mine, you know, it was Workman's. I just put some things in there that were specific to our team. But I told my coach when we started hiring that at the time we didn't have Workbench, and so they provided a Google Drive folder to me. And the information that was in that Google Drive folder that was relative to hiring was worth more than an entire month of coaching. You know, what it did for us and the amount of time it saved and the detail of it was awesome. But down there, the other resources that, you know, the direct access to the training center, the Agile, you know, that's a spreadsheet, transaction tracker, lead tracker. Those are all things that we use on a daily basis. And all my coaching calls are recorded on the right-hand side over there too, if I want to go back and listen to a coaching call from a previous session.
So Mike, what would it look like if we looked at your Agile?
You can open it if you want, Verl.
Okay.
It's my Agile is not nearly as complete or detailed as some friends of mine. You know, Anthony Margulies and Christy Buck have amazing Agiles, and I strive to be like them when I grow up. But you know, our Agile at the top, we have what is our most important thing right now, and we identified the growth that we need to have and the leads that we have coming in and where we want to be. That was the number one thing. So you can see it wasn't just hire a buyer's agent. It was hire buyer's agent 6, 7, and 8. And because we already have that sprint, this is really easy for us to do. We need to build out our office space now. And we need more room.
So we're probably going through this fast, but explain what the concept is behind Agile. I mean, what is that?
So Agile is a place where anything that comes to my brain that I can think of that's going to help my business, we throw it on this, it's called our backlog. It's where all of our projects lie. And then when I'm ready to execute on a project, like hire as a buyer's agent, I take that project and I create a sprint and I break that project down into all the tasks. So these are the more significant projects that we're working on, organized by the priority we feel they are in our business right now. When we first started the Agile, we took our business plan and we basically built out the Agile based on our business plan. And every year I create a business plan, we go back and we realign the priority and importance of these projects based on where we want to be at the end of the year.
And then once you decide you're going to work on a project, then what?
Well, then we'll create a sprint date for it. We put the date there on the left. We'll try to keep track of where we're at within that project. If you can scroll down, Verl, to the build out office space, you can get an idea of what that sprint looks like down there. This is one of our more detailed sprints. Thanks to my wife, she did this. But this is our sprint for building our office space so that we can handle the growth that we have going on right now. And there's probably, I don't know, 40 or 50 tasks associated with that.
So it just becomes a clear place where you execute around your priorities. And how beneficial, how has this helped you overall as a business leader in understanding what to focus on and what to do? What kind of impact has this made on you individually?
It's huge. For one, I don't know why it is, but when I take a shower in the evening, it seems to be I have all these great thoughts that come to my head. And I can get out of the shower, dry off, and open my Google Drive on my phone and quickly log my idea into the project backlog list. So it helps me get to sleep at night when I can turn the brain off and log that here. But it has been a really good guide in terms of telling us what's most important right now. We got a lot of listings coming on. We got a lot of marketing happening. But you know what? At the end of the day, we need to go back to our Agile and see what is the number one thing we need to be working on. And the number one thing isn't marketing all these listings right now. The number one thing is getting in a buyer's agent and getting in the executive assistant to help us, because then some of that stuff can be handed off to that individual. But it's been a great roadmap. It's been a great accountability partner, because my coach and I, we get into this probably every single call. Where are we at on these tasks? Is there anything else that he can help me with? But it just really helps us stay on track. And then for us, it's been about trying to get my name off of as many of those tasks and projects as we can so somebody else can do them.
I think it's awesome. One of the things I've learned is, I don't know how good you are at moving things over to your done projects. You've probably finished more than these projects since you've been in coaching, but as you finish things and you move them over here, it's really cool to see a great done projects tab.
Yeah, we've not been good at utilizing that, but I have an app on my phone called Evernote. And for the last 2 years that I've been in coaching with Workman, I've been tracking those. and there's about 32 significant items on there that were significant projects that we've completed. We are a completely different looking team or company than we were 2 years ago.
Somebody asked when we went through the buyer agent onboarding process if you had anything for listing agents and what that would look like. Do you have a similar plan for listing agents? Do you have any listing agents on your team yet, Mike?
I have 2 listing partners. They're not full-time agents. They're more partners that help me out. I still take the majority of the listing appointments, but they'll do the prospecting, they'll do the initial follow-up. I'll go on the appointment, basically close the listing agreement, and then they do a lot of the work after that, following up with them, providing them reports, that sort of thing. So they are transitioning to be full-time listing agents. They've had a lot of training. SLAM has been amazing for that, and so I'm really excited for them to get more involved, because then I won't be as heavily involved with that anymore.
That's the Seller Listing Agent Mastery Program on training them how to be great listers. So Mike, this is just a Verl asking you question, but how soon before you literally transition the listing part of your business off to your listing partners?
We're in the process of that right now. It's been more about getting enough buyer's agents into the mix to handle all the buyer flow to free these guys up. So we have our 8th buyer agent who's going to be starting next week. That's going to be a great jumping point for us to transition those other 2 partners into full-time listing agents. I would say 60 days, maybe 90 days max, that they'll be probably taking over a lot of that part of the business.
So I'm going to encourage people we've got a few minutes left with Mike to go in and type questions or things that you'd like to know or challenge that you might have had or run into in building your own teams, or thoughts that you've had about building a team, because Mike's a great resource. Mike, talk about the crowd. Why is this slide in here?
The wisdom of the crowd, it's incredibly powerful. I'll never forget the experience of people who don't know about Leverage 18 down in Sarasota, Florida back in January, bringing in a couple hundred people from around the country that are producing at levels 5, 6, 7 times greater than what we are. And you know, we weren't the smallest fish in the pond either, but the wisdom of the people there, the generosity, what these guys were willing to share. The coaches with Workman, when we get out to coach training in Utah, and there's 100 people in a room, and everybody over lunch and dinner are sharing what's working for them and what's not working for them, and the ability to reach out to them, you know, even outside of those functions, is extremely powerful. I'd say that's probably where I have had the most growth, is being surrounded by people who are at a level that I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, it's a little bit humbling when you're in that room. You think you're a big producer until you get in the room where, you know, someone's doing a couple 100 million or 500 or 600 units, and you're like, yeah, I might do 100 this year.
Right, absolutely. It's very humbling, but it shows us that it can be done, and the quality of life that those individuals have is extremely high too. It's not that they work twice as hard as I do. They probably work 20% less than I do, maybe even more, but they have just created a great culture and a great team and a great business.
So there's some great questions for you, Mike. Let me just, I'll start with, there's several on compensation. So how do you compensate part-time agents or listing partners?
I don't have any part-time agents anymore. I won't hire a part-time agent. Now, the part-time listing partner, they're compensated on the buyer side and on the listing side. So when they're a buyer's agent, they're earning 40 to 50% of the commission that comes into the company. In the role that they're in now, they're earning that same on the listing side. But when we migrate to being a full-time listing partner, because so much of the work is already going to be done by my team for them, we're going to move to roughly a 25 to 30% commission for the full-time listing partners. There's so much support that's provided to them. There's not nearly as much that they have to do on the buyer side, and I know that on the selling side or the listing side, they don't spend nearly as much time with those selling clients as the buying clients. So it will be a little bit of a step back, but again, we're not going to focus on the step back and the split. We're going to talk about how much money they're going to take home to their family.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Another great question is, Monty asks, I'm a single agent. When should I hire my first assistant? Or should I hire my assistant and then increase my business? Or should I increase my business and hire my assistant? What's your attitude towards assistants today, knowing what you know?
Get it now. Get it now. Don't wait, because if I'm a perfect example of that. Okay, I have 2 support people on my team, and my business is just growing to the point where I can't do what I used to do anymore. And there was zero hesitation in me to hire an executive assistant who, quite frankly, is going to be a significant impact to our expense side of our P&L. But that's very short-sighted, because I believe in me hiring her and paying her that my GCI is going to grow substantially beyond where we're at now because of adding that additional support. So I'm a prime example of get it now when you need it. Actually, I needed it probably 6 months ago. But if you're a single agent looking for an assistant, get it now. And if you can't afford it, talk to your coach about finding a creative way to pay for it. Maybe you're not paying them on an hourly basis. Maybe you're paying them on a transaction basis. Maybe you're sharing that assistant with somebody else who's in a similar situation, or if you're part of a larger brokerage, maybe you can split that assistant with somebody else. But get them, because if you don't have an assistant, you are an assistant.
Love that. Great advice. This is a really good question, Mike, from anonymous attendee. So the question says, you know, it's great to have $1 million GCI, but has it made any impact on your income take home, or is it just about building a business you can sell? I mean, do you care about your net?
Absolutely. I mean, I could bring in $1 million and have a 98% expense ratio and walk away with what, 20 grand. So the bottom line number is the most important number. It's not about that top line. And we have a pretty good profit margin, which allows us to do some of the things for our team that we're doing right now.
How much time do you spend with your coach on net, on really understanding expenses and getting profitable?
Probably not as much time as others do or should, because I really understand it. And my wife is amazing at that. Matter of fact, she balances the books not only for our company, but an attorney's office as well. So she's in there weekly, if not daily, and prints out monthly reports and annual reports. So I understand it pretty well, and my wife even better. So we don't spend a ton of time on it, Verl.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. But you're looking at it monthly. You're looking at your P&L, your balance sheet. You're going over it on a regular basis. Sounds like you're pretty fiscally smart. Another question is where are you finding your talent? I mean, do you have a specific place that you've had better success in finding buyer's agents or even admins?
Yeah, lately it's a company called WiseHire, and their website is wisehire.com. And we were introduced to that probably about 2 months ago, and it's been great for us. They actually, it's not just posting jobs on their website. They distribute or syndicate out to 61 or 63 other job boards. And we really like that. It's got a great dashboard to work with. We posted our administrative position, I don't even think a month ago, and we've had approximately 130 resumes submitted. They, as part of the process, they require you to also do a DISC and motivators. Your cover letters there, you can set up pre-question and answer. So we really like that. I won't dive any more into that. And we advertise all of our jobs through there. But other than that, getting out in the community and talking to existing agents. Make sure that your social media lets people know that you're looking for quality talent to join your team. Maybe there's somebody that you know that would be a great team member, but you aggressively have to go after the talent. I'm in the Madison, Wisconsin market, and our unemployment rate is like 2%. So it's as difficult of a market as anywhere else. And in the last 2 weeks, we have 3 buyer's agents. We actually call them sales partners now, but we have 3 sales partners that either joined our team or are going to be joining by next week. So I think you just really have to be intentionally focused on it. And Verl, I've been dabbling with, okay, I know we need more help. I know we need more help, but I get pulled in another direction. And as soon as we put that at the top of our Agile and we dive into it every week, our focus is on hiring. And once our focus became on hiring, it just happened. You know, I found that wherever you focus your time and your energy, it just starts to happen.
You know, when someone asks a question like, where can I get a copy of Agile? I think that we fail them by not, by giving them a tool, because the tool of the Agile in Google Drive is not what helps create the structure and the prioritization, but it's the understanding of the concept behind Agile and working with your coach to prioritize, build the sprints, and then delegate. It's the whole process. Agile is just a tool, but it's the understanding of the process and the complexity of being a successful CEO of a business that makes a difference. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you could have gave me the Agile 2 years ago before I joined coaching. I wouldn't have known what to do with it, and I probably could have figured it out because there's books out there. But guess what? I probably would have put everything in there when I had all these great ideas, and then I probably wouldn't have executed because there wouldn't have been anybody there to hold me accountable. My wife was the only one that I have to answer to, and she wouldn't know about it. She wouldn't be looking at it. But when I talk with my coach twice a month and we dive in there, there's a huge level of accountability. And quite frankly, my coach pushing me and driving me is what's helped us get to where we're at and where we're going to go. Granted, he hasn't done the work, but he's kept me accountable to doing that work. And I'll tell you, even having Agile, it's not enough. You have to be in it. And it got to the point where I wasn't in it enough that now when I open my browser, the Agile is my home screen. Okay, so when I open Google, I click on Google Chrome and I open it, what opens is not Google's page, it's my Agile. So I see it every time I open a browser. And I got to thank my friend Julie Timms for that tip.
Yeah, it gets you really focused. So this is a great question, and we have a lot of people that consider, that kind of look at the world this way, and that is that, look, you hire a person that is a listing partner. You pay him 25%. You teach him how to go out and list. How do you keep them with you? Why don't your people just leave? You know, because if I'm working on 40% as a buyer's agent or 25% as a listing partner, can't I just go do it myself?
Yeah, you could do it yourself, but what's your production going to look like at the end of the year? And from what I know from other friends that have had people leave their teams that are running a similar fashion, 100% of the time, the people that they've shared with me that have left have seen a substantial fall in their production. So yeah, you could do it, but it's not just getting a listing. It's all the other support that we put around that individual that allows them to get to where they want to do. They might not want to take their own photos. They might not want to measure their own house. They might not want to follow up every time, so we can get support people to do that. The other thing too is that we wanted to create a culture that nobody wants to leave. You're paid fairly, you're taken care of, you're a valued team member, not just an employee. And so we want to create an environment that people just don't want to leave. The guy who just left that this wasn't a good fit for, he had tears in his eyes during the exit interview because he had such a great experience here. He just learned that unfortunately real estate wasn't for him.
You know, it was funny last night. I was talking to one of our other teams, and they have a listing partner who has 27 pending contracts in June. And there is no way in her world that she could ever do that on her own. She has somebody preparing pre-listing packets, doing all of her comparables, getting it all ready. She goes out and literally does a listing presentation and goes on to the next deal. And then it goes off to the transaction coordinator who takes a contract to close, schedules all the inspections, makes sure everything happens the way it should. And then the listing partner shows up at the closing, kisses the babies, asks for referrals, gets reviews, and goes on to the next deal. And so as a process, you think about, and I asked her, I was actually in Texas last week, and I asked her why, you know, she's a high D personality, why don't you do this yourself? She says, I would never want to do all this stuff myself. I love having a team that allows me to crank at this level and still have a life by having the support around me. And so I think your answer is right on. And I cannot think of anybody who has left one of our teams that had been more successful after leaving.
Yeah, I bet.
So that's fun. It's fun. How'd you like 27 listings under contract in June?
That'd be awesome. Who wouldn't want that, right?
Let's go.
Not just the number of listings, but the quality of life that she has too.
Yeah. So with your kind of margins, who pays for the marketing on your listings?
We do. The team does. Team leader does.
Yeah.
Our agents really don't have much in the way of expenses. Take care of your annual dues with our associations, your MLS dues, et cetera. But they really don't have any other expenses beyond that.
Mike, this has been a ton of information, a lot of great content on why teams work, especially why your team works. And I just want to congratulate you for being such a great team leader and for applying the systems and process. Anybody who's on the call today, we've made a few things available to you. You can download the Daily Success Habits Tracker that Mike uses to track all of the activities that generate the results, the daily huddle agenda of what he goes through in a daily huddle. We've also given you the hiring checklist. That is the Workman Success checklist of how you get, how we hire, link to free disc assessment. And then probably the most important thing for people who aren't clients is to sign up for a business consultation. You want to speak to that for just a second? What do you think the value of getting involved with a coach might be?
So we preach return on investment, leading with revenue, right? And when in 2015, I believe my GCI was $375,000. I've been in coaching for just over 2 years now. 2017 was my first full year in coaching. And in my first full year in coaching, my GCI was $616,000, okay? The amount of money that I spent in coaching in that 1 year, or call it just over a year, was probably about $24,000. Now, granted, I'm at a higher level than the entry level that Workman provides, but that $24,000 spend took me from $375 to $491 to $616. So I had $120,000 and a $230,000. I've had $350,000 increase in my GCI in the time that I've been in coaching. So if I look at the money that I've been in coaching and what it's done to my team GCI, it's probably a 12 or 13 return on my investment. If you're waiting to get into coaching, I'm just a raving fan of Workman Success Systems and what they've done to our team and to our lives. That don't hold back on it. Jump in, call Verl, call Nate, call the team, and do your free business consultation. If you are willing to jump in and put the work in, it can be career changing.
And so give me one last piece of advice that would keep people from failure. So if you look at all the teams that you've been around and even people that you're coaching, why do people fail? So some people come in and they think, oh, if I just sign up, it's going to be a windfall and I'm just going to sit back and count my money. Why do people fail? And what advice would you give them so that they can avoid that failure?
So I've learned that there's a very fine line between average and exceptional. And it's about what those exceptional people do during the day that takes them to a different level. If you're a single agent, focus on those money-making activities, get some help in, get that admin in so that you're not focused on the marketing and put your listings in the MLS. You're actually focused on talking to people. That first thing up there, daily success habits tracker, and having a daily agenda for what you should be doing, creating those great habits is the #1 thing that you can do to prevent yourself from failing. And then along with that is have a plan. Have a plan, check in on that plan, alter that plan if needed, but stick to it and just don't give up.
Mike, on behalf of all of us at Workman Success, it's a pleasure to have you be part of our family. I love the success you're having, and I can't wait to see you double again. And so let's just 2019, we got to double. Isn't that what we do?
It is what we do, and people will ask you, well, why do you use double? And that's just not possible, and it absolutely is. We're in the middle of that right now, and what I've learned by doubling it is if I want a 10% increase in my business, when I go to double it, the activities I do on a daily basis are completely different. It's a lot of work to double, and actually not a lot of work. You just got to put some different balls in play, but don't set your goals too low, because those activities on a daily basis will be very different than if you put that thing way out there and you got to go chase it.
Great webinar today. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being part of our family. And thanks for sharing so much information from all of us at Workman Success. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you all on our next our team webinar. Thanks everybody for being here, and thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Verl. Appreciate it.